Guys, it's me, your hostess Liberty, back with some more blueprints. Yeah. I hope you enjoy your Halloween festive little gibble videos that I put together for you. I think I accidentally set the time for one of them wrong, so whoops. But whatever, you guys got two. It's fine. I'm working on another one that didn't get out in time, so I'll put that up when I'm finished. But for now, we're playing some more blueprints, because I know you guys like this. So let's just dive right on in and play some more. Where were we up to? I can't... Oh. No, I do kind of remember. We found Mum's passport. And she was, living more than just a double life from the sounds of it. We also did get confirmation that I am the son of Marigold. Yep, I'm her son. But the main character. Also, we got a package. Package has been discovered. Ooh, some gems and a brass compass. I mean, 3 goodies, why not, right? I get more north-facing rooms. Oh, we're up to 8 coins. Woohoo! Alright, let's go and turn on the system. I'm going to cut it all out, don't you worry. But first we must pay the price. Okay, basement run has been completed. Now let's go see what room we get for the day. I faffed about down there looking for the data disk. So I'm not sure. Let's go to the shrine. See if we can get some bonuses. Let's give them like 7. Yeah, all our money. Let's do it. What do we get? Chef. For each different type of spread that you do each day, add an extra dish to the dining room. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. Do we get like appetizers and desserts? Ooh, sounds fun. Alright. We got 55 footsteps left. Let's make them work. And we've got north-facing stuff, so let's just go straight up the middle. Spare room? Let's go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Aquarium, workshop, or den? Workshop? Workshop. Grab an item in here while we can. Oh, the coin purse. I'm not against it. I don't hate it. Okay, the compass doesn't work with the coin purse. As expected. Alright, passageway. We got the coins. We can do this. We'll just go as far north as we can. The den. Alright. Locked. Okay. Also locked. Great. Alright. When in doubt, head whatever direction this is. Left. That will continue to take us north. So will the den. Or the parlor? I mean, sure, why not? Okay. The words another box are on another box. The truth is on another box. Gems are in another box. So this is true. That's true. So one of these has to be false. Gems are in another box, or the truth is on another box. Okay. this is a lie. No, that has to be true. So it's talking about this one. So these two true, then this must be lie. That one wasn't hard. Until I find out that I got it wrong. But I didn't. What? My logic is logicking. Okay. That will take us north. That will take us to the den there. Secret passage through the mountain. Okay, hall, green, bedroom, red, shop. Let's go with shop. Showroom. Aquarium. I like an aquarium as much as the next person. Shovel. Free shovel in the aquarium? Don't mind if I do. Like, what? Okay, what do we got? Commissary, billiard room. Okay. The Nook will take us that direction and give us a key. The commissary will give us items for sale. Let's go Nook. By hook or by crook, go grab that Nook. There's our key. Okay. Yep, I figured. Okay. Closet, no. Ballroom. Vault. I don't want to set it to 2. We're going to get a lot of money out of this. And a key. Oh my gosh. Every time we pick up 3 of these, we get an extra coin. So we're going to have like 40... A lot more coinage. Love it. Okay. Alrighty. Granted, our footsteps are not going places. Where does this lead? Over here? Let's go. We used our 1 key. The library, the corridor, the rotunda. Corridor. The rotunda will do nothing for us in this situation. Okay, security dining room. I was promised extra meals. Extra meals I shall gladly have. Ooh. Ooh. What's on the meal ticket today? Oh, we can dig some. We got dig spots down here. And I have a shovel. Coins. Okay. I'm down with the coinage. Another coin. Yes. That's it? That's the dig spots today? Huh. Really? That's all of them? True. Huh. Alright, well that's locked. Ooh. Bah humbug. That goes back in there, and that's blocked off. Well then, let's see. Pantry, library, pantry. Get some food and extra money in here. Nice. And that is locked. Maybe I should have got the garage for the keys. Didn't even think about the keys in the garage. Alright, let's see. We're going back. Back. Through here. Okay, we haven't opened the door over here yet. We cannot open the door over here yet. Okay, back through here. Can we edit anything? Compass and shovel equals dowsing rod. What does that do again? Well, I've forgotten, but I'm about to find out again. While drafting, dowsing rod points towards rooms that may contain more items than usual. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, sure. We're back here. Let's go to the left, to the left. The library, huh? I'm done with that. Oh, we bought a book, didn't we? Curse of the Black Bridge. The legend of Blackbridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm, for versions of this tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming over the years more colourful, more verbose, and, as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, I've got to pronunciate better. With so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale to text seems an ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I have heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of this tale capable of capturing all the wonder and myth of Blackbridge. In the end, I chose to write down what felt most authentic, the story my grandmother told me as a boy long ago, the berry picker from Oros. Oh, settle in, guys, it's story time! My face is in the way. Let me just move it over here. Less in the way for the moment. Okay. Many years ago, before peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that the locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws composed of society's worst, in a time when society was at its worst, and for each crime that fearful travellers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, high-road robbery. One such member of this so-called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper. Sorry. Who had not been lucky in life, having lost 2 brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived in a gutter behind a churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks of the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child aiming to escape such hardships would take any easy road out, an easy and well-travelled road, paved with temptations, leading out of the city and into the gentry lands, where loose purse strings entwine with the strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jesper to the end of his youth, a hidden cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. It was there that he met his surrogate family and saviors, that notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted, and was often teased by the group for being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry-picker. It was not just innocence that set berry-picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he alone worked while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of the Blackbridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest tree-tops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn offered meant Jesper could reach the furthest berry Dabbler cannot talk, meant Jesper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worry of being chastised for tarrying upon his return. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination, and along the way Jesper had passed by many a familiar bush. I'm sorry, I can't read. All priorly pillaged. Jesus Christ. And so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patience has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to this long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in this new growth surprised even Jesper. The red dots suspended among the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the skies. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and nearly toppled over in joy. Once he had regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this new-found treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. I mean, it was hard work. He could have just told them. Smiling at his plan, they still would have, appreciated his work, because he went out of his way to find more. Teenagers. Smiling at his plan, Jesper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in his task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage is approaching. The thought of it made Jesper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he had neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept towards the impending sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment before the sound source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jesper hid, an elegant carriage with gold trim came soaring around a corner of trees, led by 2 beautiful white horses, and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated regalia Jesper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage, it was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jesper was certain. The sight had so transfixed Jesper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy he pulled the reins with such an effort that the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. "You boy, get out from behind the bush," he shouted with a rigidity that betrayed the modest amount of fear. "You startled me half to death coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face in a place where there ought be no face." Jesper quickly contemplated running. The man was much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behaviour, not dashing through the bramble and mud. I was picking berries." Jesper raised the half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanour of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jesper was familiar with. He had many times seen the stern expressions on the most fiendish bandits melt away when presented with a berry basket. Any suspicions that the driver might have had instantly evaporated, for even the notion of a member of the unholy hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression made allowances for a smile. "Berries, eh? Say you couldn't have picked a better spot for them, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy." Jesper took his cue to finally step forward out from behind the bush, proudly brandishing his basket. "I know, and what luck I found them. I've only just begun picking, and look how many I have. It would have taken me fourfold all the time back home to procure this number." The driver bent down for a closer look. "Where's your own boy? Must be quite far." Jesper replied with a scripted response. "Little south of Tanner Fork, just beyond the burnt woods." "My God, that is far. You couldn't come all that way only this morning." It was true. Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction that Jesper had travelled, and while that response would seem perfectly reasonable to a location closer to Black Bridge Canyon, he could see why it might seem less believable here. Sir, I've travelled much farther for much less profit. I dare say there's no distance yet made by man that would not be worth undertaking for a price such as these. Surely you've tasted them for yourself." Jasper felt happier with this response, as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. "In my youth often, but perhaps I took it for granted because I never had to travel very far. And even then my father would always drive us here in our carriage, so I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn an equal reward." It was Jasper's time to smile. "Then let my offers reward us both today." He raised the basket even higher. "A tasty memory of your youth, sir." The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket, and at the moment his fingers touched the first berry, the dagger in turn met his throat, cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood. Jasper caught the man's startled eyes. "And for that taste, I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth." The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been before. Jasper, Jesus fucking Christ, if you had a brain. If you had a brain. This guy's obviously rich. He's obviously sort of like bonded to you through this shared experience. If you just let him take some berries, he probably would have tossed some gold at your feet for you. You know? Would have been like, "You know what? Here, have some money, kid. You remind me in my youth. I'm gonna reward you for giving me a taste and a memory back of my youth." Like, okay. The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been before. Whether unable or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged in this particular time. Jasper let the basket drop, freeing his other hand to probe the man's pockets. "Do not mistake me, sir. I will not kill you if you give me no cause, though I will admit the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you the indignity of walking appeals to me." Unable to find the purse in the man's coat, Jasper pivoted to search the seat under him. "Why have you no purse upon your person?" The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing towards the carriage door behind him, just below the knife's edge a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did, in turn softly. "There's a lockbox in the carriage." "Well, come down then and grant me your courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands. A concession, I assure you, of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat." The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself on the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jasper guided him away from the carriage to a nearby tree, where instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Also, this guy's probably royalty, the way that he was talking. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jasper while he figured out how to adequately hind him. "Also, now you've fucked yourself over with the berry picking. Because you can't come back here. You let this guy go, you can't come back here. He knows that you've been here." The smile and kindness Jasper had seen on the man's face, now nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes displayed no emotion. "I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you are showing me?" Jasper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it, secured the final bindings, and then hastily returned to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man. "If there's no lockbox, there will be no clemency." Inside the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unkempt, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished gold facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage in this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jasper had suspected. The driver of this carriage was not a liveried servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned upon seeing what rested under the carriage's back seat, a large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jasper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, two observations were made. Totemic symbols found carved on all four sides of the box hinted that the box was very old and likely not created by Arindian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the old world and was presumably crafted in one of the ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusted yet robust padlock, and would not open easily without a key. Jasper looked over to see the driver, quietly observing from his indentured position. "Do you perhaps have a key you can provide me to open the box?" Without emotion, the driver replied, "There is no key to that box." Jasper stood up. "Easy enough, then." He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up, carrying it back to the box. If there was ever a time when that lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone had completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent back down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jasper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised how heavy it seemed, given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly to the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had once again returned. "You're cursed, boy, for deadly is that stone. You've opened that which should never have been opened, and you are cursed." Jasper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face. "What is it?" "That's one." Feeling the disappointment rising to anger now, Jasper tightened his grip on the effigy. "One what, you mumbling agento? And in God's name, why have you no purse upon your person?" The man did not seem intimidated. "One pace." "One piece?" He paused for effect. 12 more and you will be dead." He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If there was ever a time when the old man had been resistant to brutal force, it wasn't recent. Jasper looked down at the sculpted stone figure, now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had, of course, heard stories of curses and had never doubted their validity in the past, but now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And what if he was cursed? What difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul, to say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he stood, he could live maybe another 3 or 4 days, maybe more given the abundance of nearby berries. A plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do? To be discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries, and raving about a curse that could very well not be real. No, it would most certainly be better to face one's fate now, take a dozen paces, and see if life goes on. But Jasper found his legs unable to make that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limbs to waste away 1/12 of his life in a single motion. Feeling the desperation sink in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution, and if by some stroke of luck the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him, as if he found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. Oh, that's why the old man was... Oh. The old man rode the carriage everywhere because he had been cursed. Right? And that's why he couldn't get down and, taste the berries for himself or go walking. I see. 2 white horses and a carriage of golden trim were beside him, the answer to his immediate prayers. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4. Perhaps only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking a task too great to chance. And so, after a profound breath, he took his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th steps, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horses, he reached for the reins and suddenly realized that he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it would most certainly be better left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of the figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox, whose typical function oft secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jasper found his mind equally reluctant to allow his hand let go. If it is cursed, I die. If not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I? With that statement said aloud to the horses seemingly, Jasper took up the reins with confidence. Geez, this is a long book, guys. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have the cheek to awaken her in such ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she glared up at him in the darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on third watch today. Quietly collecting her things and wits, Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful to not awaken the sleeping bandits around her. Like a hero in a book, she often mused. Quietly she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly formed pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked towards the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved, and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting beside a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn Miller followed. Ravia reached the access to grab the water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room for maneuvering in this tree post, a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail up to her mouth dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she had been. Miller laughed silently as the porter pulled out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound, but Miller appreciated the efforts Ravia took to verbalize the silence of the morning. They had been on third watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly scarce amongst the unholy hounds. She had felt camaraderie before, of course, but intimacy never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance of the cavern as well as a clear view of the bridge that spanned across the cavern. Blackbridge was the link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Orris and Reddington. To the city-faring folk of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task to ensure that travellers passed by without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of her band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-house bandit it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day there was no shroud to conceal her expressions, nor hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, suddenly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary, gestures quietly forged in the shared solitude of their month among the branches. She watched as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboards beneath them. Miller knew what she was trying to say, but shook his head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back to the cavern. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller, too, heard the sound of approach. Ravia held up two fingers, and a few minutes later 2 men emerged from the bridge's southern end. They were dressed in a familiar uniform, long grey cloaks with black facings, white waistcoats, and black tricorn hats. They belonged to the local patrol, the Blackguard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence on a black bridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveller's impending passage across the bridge, information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight when the Blackguard was nearby. The men had nearly reached the bridges north, and where Miller heard the horses, faintly at first but growing louder with each passing movement. Ravia's eyes met Miller's, the same concern mirrored in each other's expression. They did not sound like the typical carriage, cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead of the familiar crunch of the high road's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking towards the foliage. The sounds were not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had nocked an arrow and drawn her bow. Go! Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down the bank below, racing toward the cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. It was a blackguard attack. Except it's not. It's frickin' stupid ass, brainless Jesper. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. She had expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing that thought, her second arrow was in the air. Without a trail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such rough terrain, yet she watched as the wheels jolted over the rocky riverbed. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into a small ditch, slamming into an embankment. The force of the sudden halt immediately shattered the front two wheels and catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced over her shoulder to see if any of the horses were also approaching from the rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the unholy hounds came spilling forth from the earth as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seemed even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized: they had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Geoffrey Heartslasher, led the others, cautiously approaching the crashed carriage like a suspicious fox would near a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in customary silence. I mean, what could they do? They saw a carriage coming down. They didn't realize that it wasn't an attack, so of course they opened fire. It's not like they'd know that it was Jesper or anyone else, because Jesper, the idiot, decided to go down there when there were blackguards coming. Like, fucking wait and see that the coast is clear before you go, right? There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jesper had always been her favourite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted she had always called him, though deep down she had known that wasn't quite true. His appearance of gentleness concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a flower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy they had found beside him served as a distinguishing gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords marking neighbouring plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and rattling of the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking sting of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled the space around her. But even in alarm, the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes tight and used her feet to guide her along the passage. The whispers around her were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard ahead, louder speech than she had ever heard spoken in the canyon. A growing dread grew as Miller approached the mouth of the cave, her eyes now open wide despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed 2 bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. 2 bent fingers confirmed what Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. Oh, they forgot to talk about the blackguards. Ah, shit. An hour or so later, the screams began, blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fodrick Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave. "Ah," he grinned, "now they speak." Wow. Wow. Okay. That was quite the book. Holy shit. Okay. Now they speak. Now they speak indeed. I've forgotten where I am right at the start. Okay. Well. The archives has more than usual. Well, that means it would have something, right? You know what? Never mind. I don't have any bedrooms. Archives it is, I guess. Okay, archives. What do you have to offer me? Apparently you have something. Oh, a gem. That's it. That's the more than usual. And now I'm just going to get fucked over. Okay. Sure. Oh, no. No. You telling me the pool has more than usual? Fine. What does the pool have? Some shoes. Okay. I'm not against running shoes. They're useful. They are useful. Okay. What have we got here? That one? I'll let the dowsing rod pick my way. Oh my gosh. Oh! Is that the more than usual thing? Yes? Okay, where are we? That leads into the archive room. Okay. We're just heading down, I guess. Whatever this is, I guess, has more. What? What room is this? The morning room? What is this room? The solarium. Oh, I can't dig holes anymore. Oh, but we've got more lore! And another one of these, and one of these, and two of these, and some of these, and. Okay, wait, it's. Haha. I'm now up to $10 a day. Woo! Okay, let's see. Mr. Nagula. Anne wanted me to remind you once again that it is expected of you to keep the grass in the cloister cut and the trees trimmed. I have a feeling you may have forgotten how to open the cloister wall again, so to save you some stern words, I decided to draw you a little diagram to help you out. Who knows, maybe this time it will stick. Cloister grounds access. Well, face to face with the angel, press the base of the two pillars on either side of you. Oh my god, that is going to be so useful if we ever get back there. I will note that down in a moment. Boiler room? I mean, you're saying the boiler room's got stuff in it, so sure. Let's have a look around, buddy. Wah-ba-ba-ba-da-bum. Where would I put stuff for my boiler room? To north, I guess. Open that door. Whoop, press the wrong button. Is there stuff in the boiler room, like items down here, maybe? There's a... Is that what they mean, like the dig spots? Is that what it was pointing at? I guess that's more than what is normally down there. Okay, let's see. Let's get into security. What have we missed so far? Okay, so there must be an upgrade disc. I don't know where the broken lever is. But the upgrade disc must be down in that basement. Okay. Laboratory. Oh shit, I can't get it. And that bodes well for us. And that's locked. Of course it is. Dag nabba dabba doo. Well, we're probably not going to get much further than this, but we'll try. We'll see what we can do with what we are doing. Okay, so I saved myself. Oh, there's the broken lever. Okay, good to know. There's no upgrade disc in here, is there? No? Okay. Okay, let's see. Archives are full of that. Library is full. Over to this side. Let's see what we got. Ballroom. Can't do. It's whatever this one is. Okay, the bedroom. And it doesn't help us at all. Well, this run at least had some... Hi, birdie. At least had some lore as part of it. So there's that. So there's that. And we did get extra token. So that's a thing. Yeah. We got a lot of money. We can't really spend it on anything. I mean, I could go straight up the middle and hope that there's, like... But we haven't got any keys, so we can't. That's unfortunate. Should have grabbed that garage while we could. Don't mind me, I'm just going to see if I can stick some things together. Broken lever. Boinker. Coin purse. No. Shoes and coin purse. Shoes and broken lever. No. Alright, well, I guess that's all we've got. This one took a while because of all the lore, right? Yeah, that's locked. Alas! This is a dead end? That is a dead end. It is a dead end. We didn't make it to room 8, so no food either. And, blessing of the chef, yeah. Alright, well, we might as well call it a day. There's not much else we can do here. Unfortunately, there goes our 64 gold. Dang it. And this is actually a longer episode because of all the lore we found. So I'm going to call this done for the day. I'm also going to move my head back over here. Back where I belong. Forgot to do that after I finished reading the book. Okay, we got an east-facing villa. One new room. We got the solarium, which is a nice-looking room, by the way. Very pretty. Very, very pretty. But yes, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day. If you want to play the game for yourself, you can find a link in the description below. And, yeah, lore-heavy episode today. Or more story-heavy episode today. Yeah. I wonder if that plinth, right? The thing that we found, the thing that Jesper found, is somehow tied into this mansion in some way, shape, or form. Imagine we open the 46th door and it's just a room full of like swords sticking out of the ground and weapons sticking out of the ground, and that one thing, the statue, it's like, oh no, we're cursed. I can only take 13 steps. Oh my god. Wait, hear me out. You only have a certain amount of steps per day? Could the curse have been tied into this place, but reshaped in order to break it so it's not a death curse, but just a lock-in how many per day inside the villa? Or there wasn't a curse, but it's based on a legend that got transformed into the idea of a curse, and that is where, and the original thing, whatever it was that the rumor was turned from, is what's affecting Mount Holly. Oh, I think I'm working with brains here. Anyway, I'll catch you next time, guys. Until then, take care, peace out, and have a good one. See ya!